I'd like to call to order the November 18th, 2025 meeting of the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board at 6:31 p.m. We'll start with a roll call. So please unmute yourself and say here, Helen Erickson,
Here.
Maurice Roberts,
Maurice is here.
okay, Stan Schumann,
Here.
and Matt Smith. I think I almost heard something, but I saw Matt. Now we don't hear you. But I see that you had gone unmuted, but I'll move on. Lynn Sutherland,
Here.
thank you. Matt, do you want to try it again? You can work on it. We see that Matt is here, but if you comment, you're going to want to be able to have sound, and Stephen Grady, chair, is here. So we'll move on to agenda item 2, review and approval of legal action report, LAR, minutes from the meeting of October 21st, 2025 action. Do I have a motion? John Burry, yes. You have your hand up.
I would, at the board's pleasure, I'd like to make a request that you amend the minutes. Became clear during PRS today that there was some confusion. Stan's motion for the LIR was actually that the metal elements, the standing seam roof, the fence, and the corrugated metal be either non-shiny or non-reflected or painted.
Mhm.
And all the exterior doors were supposed to be single light over 2 or 3 panels.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes with those amendments?
This is I will bring forward a motion. Do this. We approve the motion with amendments.
Okay, thank you. I think Maurice, I'll put you down as a second for that because we had you both speak at the same time.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Okay, so I'll do a roll call. Helen Erickson,
Aye.
Maurice Roberts,
Aye.
Stan Schumann,
Aye.
Matt Smith, almost, but not quite. But Matt is nodding, and we'll hopefully get him able to speak soon. Lynn Sutherland, Lynn, let me see if she is on page 2. Lynn, can you hear us? Okay. Note that Lynn Sutherland lost connection at 6:35 p.m. And we'll try to bring her back into the meeting as soon as we can. And then Steve Grady, aye. Lynn, as soon as you are able to rejoin, please say hello, and then we can note when you were.
Hello.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi. And I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stay in this meeting because my internet keeps cutting out, but I'll try.
Okay, so we just had a motion to approve the minutes with the recommended amendment.
Yes. I
Aye. Okay. Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. Number 2, uh, and number 3 is call to the audience. And I think that there was a call to the audience. I think that was there anything, Michael? I think that you would read it into the minutes. if something was received before 5 p.m. on November 17th.
Yes, Mr. Chair, on item 2, just as some of you were at PRS today, there were some comments that were received on the All Saints project, which Desiree is here and she can update us on that one.
Sure. So there were two comments received, one from the Tucson Historic Preservation Foundation, and then there was another letter received by John Burr. I would say both had similar comments, and both were provided to the board. So, and they're pretty extensive, so my summary is going to be pretty brief of them. But essentially, there were some procedural questions and questions about how the items were agendized. There was also substantive comments on the project itself. So that's kind of the Cliff Note version. In response to some of the questions that were raised about the agendizing, we revised the agenda to be a bit more clear on what was the focus and the ask for the board and for PRS to review. So the items are courtesy reviews. There will be comments provided to the project team overall. When we also will be able to kind of go over other reviews that will come, the actual full reviews that will come later. That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Desiree. There was a request in the chat to make a verbal comment during the call to the audience. I think that we have a call to the audience. Desiree or Michael, there are quite a few people who'd like to make verbal comments into the record, but I don't think that they were received before 5 o'clock. So if you can help me determine the procedure for this.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the call to the audience is supposed to send in your comments to us to be received before that 5 o'clock time constraint. But depending on the board, if the board so chooses to be flexible and allow people in the audience to make a comment, that is up to the board. And typically, those comments and all comments are supposed to have been received before the deadline.
Okay. John, you had your hand up. Did you have some clarification from a procedural standpoint?
I was just going to say what Michael said. It's board chair. Both Martha and I, when we were chairs, allowed call to the audience on certain cases if they appeared.
Because of the importance of this case, I'm going to hear the call to the additional items that would like to be for people who would wish to make a comment. Please be brief, and please introduce yourself so that we can read this into the minutes. Okay, so Ryan Anderson, you were the first.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Mr. Chair and other commissioners. Really appreciate it. My name is Ryan Anderson. I live at 125 East 15th Street, 85701, so just around the corner. Just wanted to thank staff for holding this meeting and you, commissioners, for having these public forums. And I also want to thank Mr. Burr and A12 for some of the community organizing. I just wanted to express that my wife and I live in Armory Park because of the unique character of the neighborhood. And while we support infill very much and adaptive reuse very much and increased density very much, we also feel that it's very important to maintain the distinct character of Armory Park. So my main consideration, or what I would like you to consider, is the design standards. Um, the current plan, as I reviewed it, left much to be desired in terms of conforming to the design standards in the historic preservation zone and in the Armory Park plan. So I would ask that this commission direct the developer to update their designs to reflect proper massing, proper aesthetics requirements, and to comply with the design standards. Thank you very much, Chair. I really appreciate the opportunity to make some comments.
Thank you. We'll go down the list. Lori.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Board. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Lori Van Boogenham. I live at 126 East 14th Street, right behind the All Saints School. And the All Saints property is an opportunity for an infill housing and/or mixed-use project that is informed by and integrates with the historic elements and nature of Armory Park. And I remain hopeful that such a project is possible. But I really strongly feel that the proposal before us tonight misses this mark as is. Furthermore, I am concerned about the manner and the expedited timeline in which this large multi-site proposal had been brought forward for public review. As a resident and as a homeowner, I'm looking to the board to provide guidance and recommendations on this project to ensure that it upholds the qualities that make our neighborhood special. Given the board's feedback on previous All Saint project proposals, I have to say that I was surprised to see the scale, the heights, and the setback in the current proposal. I would have thought that previous comments and recommendations on such similar proposals would have informed the current effort, but rather it seems like those previous recommendations and comments have been disregarded. I support thoughtful and place-aware infill and look forward to an All Saints proposal that provides more opportunities for people to live in and enjoy the qualities that make Armory Park a uniquely special place in Tucson. Thank you.
Thank you. Etoile.
Hi there. Thank you all for coming together this evening. I'll be as brief as I can. From a personal standpoint, I am a pro infill, I am pro development, I am pro a bustling downtown. I happen also to live right next door to this project. I own actually 3 properties on Arizona Avenue, and I've lived here for 21 years. I'm not just a property owner, I'm a neighbor and I'm a contributor to the community here. And I have been since 2001. I've seen a few iterations of this project. As Lori said, and I second everything she said, as well as Ryan, this Motel 6 style 3-story box with street level parking absolutely doesn't take into consideration any of the comments we've already made in relation to this project and the developer involved. And in fact, it's worse than it's ever been. You can't just take your project for your most likely flipping project for your personal benefit as developers and completely spit in the face of the neighborhood, which is what you're doing. This project is completely unrelated to anything in the neighborhood. It doesn't have any historic respect towards the rest of the neighborhood, and really is extremely unfortunate. On another very personal level, because I do live next door to it, I have noticed that this plan calls for the boiler room and the trash collection to be right next to my little 1903 Adobe living room, which it seems like if you do have any kind of like concern for the neighborhood and the interface and neighborhood support as opposed to opposition, you might want to consider doing something a little more sensitive and appropriate. In addition, on a personal level, there's supposed to be a pool in my backyard for, I don't know, for the 164 units that you're proposing for this block and the Stone Avenue area included. Are there going to be noise restrictions? Are there going to be any protections for the already existing neighbors who aren't just myself, but people nearby as well? Have you considered the parking element of this place? Have you considered that there are no lights on Sixth Avenue? There are backups already on Sixth Avenue as it is. Have you considered that there's a school zone right here? It doesn't appear that way. Additionally, I am curious as to if there's been any consideration regarding should this project go through in any form of the historic nature of my house, which is a contributing house from 1903. It's a 1903 Adobe. Will there be any kind of monitoring while you're doing this? Have you thought about it? Is there going to be a wall around this area? Honestly, this proposal that you've shown doesn't show any kind of sensitivity to the neighborhood at large, to the neighbors individually, and to the legacy that we will leave as residents of a historic neighborhood that we value and that we want to pass along to the future. That's all I have to say. And personally, there's one other thing that I did notice is that in the more esoteric aspects of the plans, there is a mention of the corrugated metal carport that existed on Arizona Avenue. I don't know, I don't remember the address. It's just south of 424 South Arizona Avenue that apparently you would like to use as part of your machinations to achieve your desires, your goals. That already has been demolished. It was up for, I don't know, at least 10, 15 years, perhaps more. It's gone now as of a couple of months ago, and I do have photographic proof of that. Just side note. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Edra, can we have your address, please? Do you have
My
an
address,
Yes.
my personal address?
The address you choose to provide us for the record.
422 South Arizona Avenue, 85701.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those that spoke. I think that the three of you are the ones who wished to speak. Was there anybody else that I missed? Okay, thank you. So we'd like to move on to item 4, which is reviews. And the first review is SD 1025-00158 TC-RES-0725-03553, 330 East 13th Street, and it has a parcel number as well, which is 11706270A. So the project is to add a new rear patio cover to the existing patio cover ramada. It's a full review of a contributing resource rehabilitation. And yes, Stan.
Yes, I'd like to make a preliminary comment on this project. I was asked to do a review on it probably 3-4 weeks ago. We were hoping that maybe we could get it as a courtesy review. I did go over there. I met with the owners and reviewed the entire project and was quite happy to approve it as a courtesy review. To let all the board members know that I think it's an appropriate project. I think it should be approved, and there is absolutely no or very minimal viewing from either the street or the alley to see this project, and it's very much in keeping with the existing detailing of the porch that's already there. So I would recommend approval on the project.
I think that it would be appropriate to have a short presentation to see the project first, but we'll definitely hold your motion.
Okay, sorry.
Wait for a second.
Apologize.
Who is going to do the presentation? Is it
I can do that. There was a request for people to give their last names. I know Martha is Martha McClements. Megan and Patricia, can you please provide your last names? And that can be done.
Is Mr. Dupont the person going to do the presentation?
Yes, Marty DuPont is going to do the presentation. Marty Esparza is me, the homeowner, but Marty DuPont will do the presentation for.
Yeah, I know that.
Thank
Let
you.
me look for his name and make him the co-host so he can do the presentation. I'm looking for his name. Mr. Dupont, you can do the present. You can share your screen now.
Yeah, Michael, I can share my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, first I'd like to thank the board for allowing us to present this project. My name is Marty DuPont. I am the project architect assisting Marty Esparza, the homeowner, on this project. What you see here is the cover sheet indicating the legal description, code review, the location of the project. I don't know if you can see my cursor as it's moving. There's two parts to this project. One is an infill of an existing canopy, and then an additional canopy that, as Stephen mentioned, mirrors the construction of the original patio cover. Any questions on this part of it? Okay. So again, this on the left, top left, detail number 1 shows the existing canopy and the limits. We are, again, just to the left of it, you'll see an area that we're infilling, which is that next detail below. So we're basically taking the existing canopy and extending it over to the structure to give the homeowner some additional protection in this walkway. And then the second part of this, obviously, is this new canopy detail number 3 that will extend across an existing paved area to provide additional shade from the elements. And then the detail number 4, if I'll go back to the site plan, you'll see just opposite of the new canopy that we're putting in, just to the opposite of that, there is plans to add in the future, add an additional canopy similar to this one that we're proposing. Under this scope of work, they would like to add, basically just add the footings now in preparation for that future canopy. And then the section shows the canopy. It's a wood frame post and beam structure, has all the detailing of the existing structure with corbels and tongue and groove undersighting. Is there any questions about that one? Okay. Next sheet shows the structural detailing, post and beam connections for the new construction and post and beam connections to the existing structure. Again, as I pointed out, item 5 here, corbel details, and then some ledger details. And then items or details 13 and 14 are the foundations or the footings for these posts. Any questions on those details?
Well, it looks like you should just do the whole presentation and then the board can ask you general question after your presentation.
Okay. All right. And well, that's the last page. So turn it over to you. You want me to leave this up, Michael, for questions?
Yeah, just leave it up.
Okay.
Can you please go to the first sheet, which shows the site plan and the proposals? So if you can help me understand, we have the 2 footings on the east side. On the west side, we have a new patio cover. And then you have, it says new infill roof. And what is the roofing type?
It matches the existing porch structure.
Okay. So I'll entertain questions from the advisory board members.
So this is how, my only question here would be with the footings and the archaeological impact. Has that actually been considered, or is it so minor as to have no impact whatsoever?
Is that a question for staff or the applicant?
Yes, Desiree, that's a question for you.
Oh.
Because whenever you dig a hole in Tucson, you have this question.
Yes. So when it's private development, essentially there's not an archaeological review. So if it's city project, if there is, federal funds, that's when the city would conduct those archaeological sensitivity reviews. But as a standard, yet it is something that we provide that information, that if human remains are encountered, to comply with state law, you would need to report that to the Arizona State Museum. And you would have to stop construction immediately.
Sound like the solution. No human remains, no problem.
Mhm.
Right.
Thank you, Desiree. Matt, you have your hand up. Let's hear you.
Let's see if this works.
Oh,
all right. I had to switch computers. I'm just curious on the roof line. So you have the existing roof pitched towards the courtyard. How does this new patio cover interact with that?
So the new patio cover is actually just above the existing patio cover that slopes down into the patio, as you pointed out. So it's just slightly above. Let me go to the section, and I think you can see it there. So this is the new patio cover. And then just beyond, you can see this is the beam of the existing structure. So this new beam here will tie into that existing. And then that roof structure, the new roof structure, will be at this point at the end, will be in line with the existing, and it'll be just slightly above at the west end.
Okay.
So does it slope to the east?
Slopes to the east, yes, into the courtyard.
Okay. Matt, does that answer your question?
It does.
Thank you. Any further questions? Then I would, perhaps someone has a motion. John Burr, you had your hand up.
Just a quick comment. Marty and her husband did a great remodel that went through the whole process a number of years, and they're just basically extending a new porch extension. They applied in July, and this is one of the reasons I get contacted all the time, even though I'm no longer on the board, by residents through the listserv and through APNA. The length and the complexity of the process in this one really makes it difficult to convince people to actually seek a permit for most things that aren't visible. And it really begs the question of, I think we need to start figuring out a process where the first point of contact is the advisory board so that residents have information before approaching the city and asking for a review. But
That
I have
would-
no comments on the project. It looks great, and I agree with Stan.
Thank you. So that's a process conversation, and I think we're going to have a very busy evening, but that's definitely something that I think we should bring up if time allows or at our next meeting. Okay, so do we have a motion?
Yeah, I would like to forward a motion to approve the plans as submitted. And I want to congratulate the owner and the architect. This whole project is beautiful. You guys have done a great job, and I really applaud it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Stan? Additional comments or questions? I'll call the vote. Helen Erickson,
Aye.
Maurice Roberts, Maurice?
Aye.
Okay. Stan Schuman,
Aye.
Matt Smith,
Aye.
and Lynn Sutherland. Lynn, we don't hear you, but I know that she was having difficulty with connection, so it's possible that we've lost Lynn and Steve Grady, aye. So the motion passes unanimously with the loss of one of our advisory board members due to technical challenges.
Yeah, she's still showing up as being here. So
Okay. So let's move on to the next agenda item, and that is TC-COM-1125-02090, 410, 415, and 435 South 6th Avenue, and 375 South Stone Avenue, and quite a few parcels. I don't think I need to read the parcel numbers, but I would happy to do so if that was necessary.
No, that won't be necessary, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Oh,
Stephen,
yes.
I must make a statement as a board member and as having a controlling interest on a few properties directly adjacent to this particular project. I will be commenting, but I will not move forward any motions nor vote. So, in a sense, I am recusing myself. I just wanted to make it clear.
Thank you, Maurice, for making that announcement.
Mr. Chair, if you recuse from this project, you need to log off. You cannot be part of the discussion, please.
Now, as this is a courtesy review, is that a requirement?
Yes.
Okay. Maurice, I
He's
apologize.
recusing from the project because of a conflict of interest. He needs to log off. He cannot participate, whether a courtesy or full review, he cannot.
Okay.
I realize that. So, could you please contact me when you finish with this particular review and we get on to the next item on the agenda?
Yes, Maurice, I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
Okay. I will sign out now.
Okay. So, I know the applicant has a presentation, so please.
Yes, and Michael, did you give Jen permission to share her screen?
Oh, let me do that.
Thank you. So yeah, I could just provide introduction. So the All Saints Apartments proposes to construct and redevelop several buildings and parcels within Armory Park Historic District and HPZ. The apartment will be, the total collective apartment will be 164 unit new construction and adaptive reuse. of multiple buildings consisting of construction, rehabilitation of existing contributing properties, and demolition or partial demolition of existing contributing and non-contributing properties. The proposed project site is a combination of 11 individual parcels on a 1.99 acre scattered site that includes 4 existing buildings at 410, 415, and 435 South 6th Avenue, as well as 375 South Stone Avenue. Each of these buildings has previously been listed as contributing or non-contributing resources to the Armory Park Historic District and are wholly or partially located within the Armory Park Historic Preservation Zone. And because the project will be receiving support through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, it is considered a federal undertaking, subject to Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. And the applicant will present the project, provide updates on changes made since the last courtesy reviews. So there was a courtesy review provided in March of 2022, and then there was a site visit and tour of the project in, I believe it was the summer of 2025. So the project sponsors here to present those updates, collect comments, and additionally, at the end, I'll provide an overview of the UDC approvals that will be required for the project. So I will hand it over to Jennifer Levstick.
Great, thanks, Desiree. All right, let me see if I can share here. All right, is everybody able to see that all right? Great. Okay. So I know a few of you guys were in the PRS meeting today, so I apologize for the repetitiveness of this. I'll try to be efficient with my time this evening so that we can have the opportunity for discussion because I understand there's lots of concerns from the neighborhood and understandably so. So we'd like the opportunity to talk with all of you and address some of those concerns. But I will move on here real quick. I got to move a couple things on my screen here. So just bear with me so I can see everything. This is just a little reiteration of what Desiree already explained briefly in the narrative about the project. But again, I want to reiterate the fact that this is a federal undertaking. So Section 106 consultation is required as part of this project. And throughout this project, beginning even as early as April, we have been in consultation with SHPO. We've done outreach to stakeholders. As Desiree explained, we've had an on-site tour with members of this review panel. Basically, we've been doing pretty much consultation on a almost weekly basis with Arizona SHPO to make sure that our project plans are not only going to result in no historic properties affected, but also that we are respectful of the historic fabric of these existing buildings. Just to sort of point you to this picture here, here's an example, of course, looking south down Stone, but this gives a good example of the kind of heights and massing that we see at that intersection. I will also say too that in our consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office, they have given us a verbal no historic properties affected based on the plans that you're reviewing tonight. But again, we are open to suggestions and things to work with the community, work with the neighborhood to make sure that we have a great project that all of us can be happy with and proud of and can get approved. Again, I'm going to go through some of these things. All of these are illustrations and renderings and drawings that are already in the packets that you've already received. So I don't want to go into too much detail since you've had the opportunity to look at them. But again, this is just sort of gives you a sense of the overall massing. I think there was a comment about how the massing has significantly changed since the last time. I think the new construction is probably the best example of that, building number 1. But since at least the last iteration of this project under the current design team, the project plans largely have changed in response to 410 South 6, which is building number 4 there in the middle of the street. Again, this is looking south down South 6th Avenue. As you can see from the key, the different colors mean different things. So, blue is the new construction, green is existing historic contributing. I'll point out that all 3 of those green colored buildings are all contributing properties to the Armory Park Historic District. Yellow, of course, is parking. And then the sort of brownish taupish color is refers to demolition. And thank you for the neighbor that mentioned that the carport has now since been demolished since we took photos of it. So thank you for that update. I can go through some of the discussions of the demolitions here, but again, the demolitions would include, I guess, the carport, which again seems to have been is taken down already. For building number 4, the plan is to retain the building now, which is a change from the last iteration of this project that we did a courtesy review with you in PRS. The plan is to remove the incompatible alterations that were established after the period of significance for the Armory Park Historic District. There would be the garage in the back of that would get removed. And then there's the adobe garage along Russell Avenue that's proposed for demolition as well. Those 2 garage buildings are currently listed as non-contributing based on the State Historic Preservation Office records. We've done consultation with them as to whether or not that would result in an adverse effect, and they said it does not. Let me move on to my next slide here. Again, here's just a more detailed version of the overall site plan that you all have in your packet. That gives you a little bit more details, but I would like to just move on to the schematic so that's a little bit of a better visualization. So if we're looking in plan view down onto the project location, again, the sort of orangey buildings are the existing and new construction as part of this project. You can see now, if you can see my cursor here over 410, this is the largest change since the last iteration of this through the courtesy review process, is that the building will be retained, and then new parking will be added in the front and rear of the building. That was one of the concerns in the beginning, was the original rationale for it is because it is a HUD project, and HUD does have certain parking requirements in order to meet the requirements of the HUD loan. The project proponent had to, come up with some ideas of where parking could possibly go based on stakeholder input, especially from the neighborhood and their concerns over the loss of this building. The project proponents were able to go back to the city of Tucson to try to work out an idea of how to get parking in and still retain this building for part of this project and continue to use it as part of this housing project. So that is the current iteration of the plan with the preservation of that building and still meeting our parking requirements for the HUD funded loan. Again, this is just development zone, the yellow being the project area that the development site. And then again, the sort of brown color surrounding it is the development zone with other properties in this area that we're comparing massing and scale against. Again, here's just an aerial view of the same thing, showing the development site and then just giving you a sense of the size and sort of massing of the neighboring properties within that zone. I won't go through all of the pictures in the development zone package again, because all of you have had the opportunity to look at that. Excuse me. So what we're looking at here, of course, is the 410 and the All Saints Church. As you can see, the All Saints Church on that corner is the largest building, multi-story building. As you go across the street to the school building and the chapel building, again, 2-story building, giving you a sense of the massing is on that street. Similarly, we have the 1-story building of addition of the school as well as the chapel area. And we go further down the street again, we've got now 2-story construction. Of course, we have the Curcio, which is also very large on the corner. We're looking along Stone Avenue and also some along Scott within the development zone. We see multi-story buildings. Again, the Downtown Motor Lodge being the largest of those. And again, further down the street, if you look down South 6, for example, the loft apartments there, or the Academy loft apartments there, are 3 stories in height. We have similar 2-story residential as well as commercial properties. As you go farther down 6th Street, as you get closer to downtown, the heights and the massing and the scale of buildings gets increasingly larger. The Children's Museum is a perfect example of how that happens. Adaptive reuse is part of this project. The 2 properties that are going to be adaptively reused, as well as 410 is going to be restoration, but the adaptive reuse projects properties that we have are 415 and 435 South 6th Avenue. So on your left-hand side here, that's 415. That's the long rectangular school, 2-story school building. The top and bottom picture are representations of that, as well as the addition of the school and the small chapel there to your left, or excuse me, to your right. As you can see, buildings have been vacant for some time. They haven't been well maintained. So the plan, again, in the packet of materials, again, so these are some schematics of what the proposed work looks like. And again, this is a rehabilitation project. It will be following Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. So the exterior appearance of this building will be retained. It will look like it continues to look. It'll just be repaired and maintained so that it no longer looks like a derelict building falling down. The changes that will be made to the interior, again, keeping with the Secretary of Interior standards. So the design plans are in keeping with those standards, so that they would be similar to a rehabilitation tax credit project, for example, that follows those federal guidelines. So keep in mind that is the proposed work and the proposed plan for the exterior and also the interior. And then this is an example of a rendering of what it would look like. Again, it's going to look very similar to what you see now. Just giving you a sense of scale of the new building proposed, the new construction that would be in the vacant lot directly behind building 5 being 415, the two-story school building. And then similarly, we have the same thing with the other section of the school, as well as the small chapel area. Again, this is an adaptive reuse and rehabilitation. So the plan is to, repair and make, update the building as necessary, but again, in keeping with Secretary of Interior standards. And then again, another schematic giving you just sort of sense of scale and what it's going to look like. The only change currently right now is to remove, you can see where my cursor is to remove like the crucifix or the crosses from the top of the building. We had some discussion about this with PRS. I actually reached out to SHPO this afternoon about that question because there was some discussion about retaining it or not retaining it. Our impression was that, because it's a HUD funded project, that we would be required to remove it. And I reached out to SHPO to ask for their guidance on it, and they weren't able to find anything specific to the iconography. But the development team has expressed that they're willing and able to keep any of that religious iconography on the building, should that be, what the neighborhood decides. Moving on to new construction within the HPZ. Again, this is the, basically it's a 3-story building, but it's the ground floor is surface parking. So here's some examples of what the different elevations of that building would look like. And again, keep in mind, this is set back behind the school buildings, and only pieces of this building are going to be visible depending on where you are. So for example, the interior walkways that you see here are going to be inward facing. They're not facing out onto 14th Street or 6th Avenue. And it's slightly taller, but it's similar in massing to the existing buildings in front of it. Here's an example again, just reiterating what we showed you just a minute ago. And then here's another view. Keep in mind that there's buildings, in front where my cursor is, but this is if you were to stand here at the end of the chapel building. So this is what you would see in the back. Again, this is all covered. This is not visible from the street, but this is what you would see inside the courtyard area. So I just want to make sure that that's clear because I don't think it was clear the last time we went over this. And this is an example of some of the building materials that are going to be used in the new construction. So you can see that these are materials that are referencing sort of a Spanish colonial appearance, and some of those details and elements on the new construction are going to reference those so that they are, referential to the existing buildings that are Spanish colonial revival. So new construction outside the HPZ. Again, this is the 5-story building with ground floor parking that's going to be along South Stone Avenue at 375 in front of that Adobe garage building that we were looking at earlier. This is a building that is comparable in height and scale to the building immediately adjacent to it, which is the Downtown Motor Hotel. Where my cursor is, this is the Motor Hotel. This is an example of the west facing or the west elevation that you would see if you were going along South Stone Avenue. And then we have demolitions full and partial. We'll talk a little bit about those. So for the partial demolitions, the partial demolition would be in reference to these additions that we see on the front elevation and the rear elevation of 410 South Avenue. And then the full demolitions are proposed for the Adobe garage at 375, which is a non-contributor. This garage at the back of 410 South 6th Avenue, which is also a non-contributor. We do have evidence that this garage building has changed over time. And then, of course, the carport, which one of the neighbors has recently said has been recently taken down within the last 2 months. So I want to talk a little bit about those buildings' histories. Again, I think none of us are going to dispute that the shed's not old or significant. So that's a full demolition. The garage, the Adobe garage, that one, again, there's differing dates of construction. Although the assessor's claims it's 1935, we all know it's much earlier than that. It's currently listed as a non-contributor to Armory Park. We do know that there have been some changes made to that building. So we do know that there were some interior walls that were in the building that have been roofed after the 1950s. There is a zoning agreement on this particular parcel. So the demolition of this garage will have to go through review. Desiree can talk a little bit more about that when she gets to her section of all of the nuance, all the different reviews that are going to have to happen. And then 410 South 6. So the idea being that you would keep the shell of the original building. There's a building that we know it's probably listed during the initial inventory for Armory Park, but we at least have documentation of it from 1994. It is a former Archdiocese building. It's labeled as a priest dwelling in the Sanborn maps. We do know that through photographic evidence and Sanborn maps that we do know that there have been significant alterations to the east and west elevations of the building over time that we know post-date the period of significance. And then the garage, we do have some evidence of it appearing in the 1940s, but it is also listed as a non-contributor. We've had SHPO look at all of these buildings to weigh in and provide their opinion. SHPO has stated that both the garage at the back of 410 has lost any integrity and that it's non-contributing in their opinion as well. But we have a consultation letter in with them, but Catherine Leonard is out on vacation right now, but she will be submitting a letter on their review of any of these particular buildings. And then moving on, and then I just want to give you all an example again that should be in your packets. You would probably have the opportunity to review this for those that haven't. I wanted to be able to show this to you. So this is the existing building on the top here. As you can see, we have these additions that are placed onto the front of the building. And then on the bottom illustration is the proposed rendering of what it would look like. Again, through exploratory demolition, we'll be able to figure out exactly where the window placements are. I have shared these renderings with SHPO as part of our consultation to get their opinion. They said that, we want to make sure that the removal of these additions is not going to cause this building to lose its contributing status to the Armory Park District. And they have concurred that it would not. They said that they would err on the side of a more plain facade as shown here than something that's much more elaborate or assuming a particular architectural style that may not have existed. One of the challenges with this building is that we don't have any pictures of the front elevation of this building. We have little snippets of corners. We have aerial views that show the roof line, that sort of thing, but we don't really truly know what its architectural style is. And so they don't want us to make any guesses as to what it is, but rather to, return the openings to where they were and to keep it, like I said, a much more sort of plain facade rather than conjecture about what architectural details may have been there historically. And then I think, so I think that's it. But what I would like to do is give Angela an opportunity, because I know there were some questions at the beginning of this meeting about some of the design decisions. And I want to give Angela, who's the architect on this project, the opportunity to speak to some of those concerns.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us and letting us present to you and talk with you. I always enjoy hearing what neighbors think and also what the historic board is concerned about and wants to discuss and improve. So procedurally, are we supposed to be answering questions that are coming through the chat? Just as a question before I start addressing those comments.
I would say no. You go ahead and have your presentation, and
Okay,
then the advisory board members will ask questions.
great. So the comments that were asked at the beginning, they talked about massing, placement, and arrangements, I would say. So in the Armory Park district requirements, there are a number of contextual requirements that we have documented and complied with. So in terms of the surrounding neighborhood, what the materials are, the massing, the relationships of openings and solid walls and railings and those types of things. So similar to what we're looking at here, the All Saints Church, the stairs are the prominent entry. So at the school, we've maintained that prominent stair entry and put the ramp off to the side, just like they did at the church. We've in the new buildings, we have taken some of the materials that are in the existing neighborhood and we're utilizing those materials. So a lot of stucco, applied tile and or glazed brick, and elements that are historically reflective for the new buildings that are in the district. Jennifer, did you want me to address anything specific?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. I wasn't sure if there's any, at this point, if we're still, it's still early enough, whether or not there's any ways we can address concerns about noise or any of those kinds of things. I know that was brought up.
Yeah. So we, of course, want to be cognizant and aware of anything that the neighbors are concerned about. And so, for example, in the pool area, I think that was mentioned, we are providing extra landscaping and different areas to soften, any sort of noise that's happening in the pool area. We definitely are complying with the city's noise requirements. From an operational standpoint, I will let the owners address that, but in terms of design, we are definitely thinking about all those aspects. And someone else mentioned adjacencies of certain elements, operational or practical elements on our sites, and adjacencies to their properties. We definitely will take that into account and adjust accordingly. And are open and excited to hear, about any design elements that you'd like to discuss.
Yeah, I think the only other question there, I think there was a question about parking. I'm not sure if we kind of already addressed this in this presentation, but I just want to make it clear that there is, which has been one of the constraints of this project is trying to find adequate parking. So I think, the redesign of this currently would address any of those parking concerns so that there is sufficient parking for any of the residents within this site. So I hope that's clear. But yeah, it has been a significant challenge in the design is to be able to accommodate that.
And HUD requires more parking than the city of Tucson requires for these sites. So we're providing more parking than the city of Tucson is requiring.
So you had mentioned there are 164 units. How many off-street Not counting the on-street parking. How many off-street parking spaces are you providing?
We're providing, so HUD requires one-to-one parking. So we're providing at least one space for every unit.
Okay. And does that include on-street parking or is that all off-street parking?
We have a little bit up here. So can you see my cursor, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So we have this parking now available, and Angela can correct me here.
Yeah, so that parking that's on the north side of the blocks, we're now utilizing as well.
Yeah. Originally, we were not allowed. We weren't able to use those, but now, the team went back to the city and were able to be able to add those in.
So I'm looking at like 27 or so, just glancing at that. Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, utilizing those spaces, we're now in excess of the 164. So we have more than 164 in terms of parking spaces available for residents.
So I would like to address this in an area by area approach. I think that if we can call Site 1 the 375 South Stone Avenue, and the demolition of the garage structure, if we can discuss that first, it might be helpful. And Desiree, can you give us a little bit of background? Because I know that there was the uh, development had, there was an agreement.
Yes. So this address, 375 Southstone Avenue, went through a rezoning process in 2022. So there was an ordinance passed that requires demolition review, historic demolition review for that property at the southeast corner. Um, and then additionally, the new construction would require historic review as well. So it's that parcel was because it was rezoned, it's technically not in the HPZ. It's kind of like a hole in the HPZ, but historic review is still required per that ordinance.
I remember I was on the board at that time. That there was a portion of the lot which was part of the HPZ and as part of the rezoning of that so that this parcel could be developed. If I'm not mistaken, we had those two requirements, contingencies to that. So my sense is that the demolition of the Adobe garage structure will end up coming through mayor and council. Is that true?
Yes, per the ordinance, it would need to go through full historic demolition review, which is a decision ultimately that's made by mayor and council.
Mhm. And then we saw plans that were very detailed plans for development on that lot. I think that if I'm not mistaken, we had approved those plans, but the plans that we see are very different. But we would have review. Can you describe the level? We would be looking at the five-story structure in relationship to how? Can you help us with that?
Sure. Yeah, the ordinance basically says that it should be compatible with the historic district and that as part of the review, it would go to the advisory board and to PRS.
Okay. So when we take a look at site one, we'll be looking at two elements. But one is the compatibility of the proposed structure within the historic district. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if we could take a look at site two, which is between Russell Avenue and Sixth Avenue, we'll be looking at demolition of a structure, but also the proposed demolition of the back garage structure, and then the additions to the structure, which is 410 South Sixth Avenue. And the the additions just miss, I mean, just miss within 5 years, being in the period of significance, so 3 years within the period of significance, but they are outside of the period of significance, which was listed as essentially the start of World War II. Not the start, but 1945. So if I'm not mistaken, so we'll be looking at this parcel, we'll call it Site 2, in relationship to those elements and the parking lot itself, which doesn't have a lot of detail for any screening of parking or anything at this time, but it's a courtesy review, so I think that we'll just comment on what we have. And then if I'd like to look at, and Desiree, do you think I've communicated that properly?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll look at Site 3, which is parcels on both South 6th Avenue and South Arizona Avenue. And there's addresses and parcels that are on both 6th Avenue, 14th Street as well, and 6th Avenue. And so we'll look at that as Site 3. It has a already demolished carport structure. It has the rehabilitation and adaptive reuse of 2 historic structures, the inclusion of a pool area between the two, and then it also has the proposed construction of apartment buildings, 3-story apartment buildings, if you count the first story, the garage structure as a story. And I think we would in this case. Would that be the case? Desiree? So that comprises Site 3, correct?
Building 5 and 6?
Yes.
Yes. Can the architect perhaps confirm that?
Site 3 is buildings 5, 6, and also 2.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now, Desiree, I have a question about the development zones. As these are separate parcels, are they considered one large parcel for development zones, or are the development zones individual based on the different sites or on the different parcels?
That's a good question. Usually I see them in relation to the specific parcel. But yeah, this is a larger project, so I'd probably have to go and confirm
Okay,
the
because that's
development
something that I
zones.
think that we'll want to information that we'd like to move forward with, because when we take a look at the development zone that's been presented, it is for the entire site. But if there are development zones specific to the parcel, and I think that very much so, we would like to know specifically with building 2, because we're looking at something that is taller than the buildings on its own site, on its half block. And so that's something we would definitely want to take a look at. Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the way the development zone is drawn and described in the code, it is parcel specific. It is not for the whole area. And because I believe this project will be coming back with various parcels and different addresses and stuff like that, at that point, they'll be able to provide the development zone for each parcel and for each project that they are presenting.
Thank you. That will be very helpful because we really need to be very specific about that. So those are the questions that I had just to help organize the discussion. And so I would like to open up the discussion specifically to Site 1, questions and comments from advisory board members. So, Stan.
Hi, this is.
I'm sorry, Helen. Stan had his hand up. So,
go ahead, Helen. Go ahead. You can go first.
I was just double checking about the garage situation. In other words, that still has to go through mayor and council, despite its open status. Am I correct on that, Desiree?
Yes, because the ordinance specifically for the rezoning process for that parcel specifically stated that it must go through that process, then that's a condition that has to be met.
Okay,
So,
thank
just really quick to help you clarify this too, Helen, but for the section 106 process for SHPO's review, the fact that it's non-contributing means there's no adverse effect. So, but it's at the local level, it's a different situation. So I think that might be part of confusion. Because they don't, the SHPO isn't working with like the local regulations, so they're working for that, so it's if it's non-contributing from their perspective, then it's no adverse effect versus at the local level where it's written into the language of a redevelopment package for a zoning package that it's significant. Maybe I made it more confusing. I don't know if I did.
I think it is confusing because we're talking about two different processes here.
Yep. Yeah,
But
we have two different processes going on, which is the state national level and then the local level. Yes.
exactly. And I guess the real question here is which process would take priority in terms of this project. So I'm not saying one or the other should. I'm just saying this is one of the questions that probably needs to be sorted out, because it will obviously be a point of contention.
Thank you, Helen. Stan.
Yes. I have several issues with Site 1. And since we were talking about parking, and this is a major part of the parking for the project, I have to disagree with what you said earlier, that there's equal number of parking spaces for the number of units, because it's not true based on your records and your count on this presentation. Your presentation does state that you have 164 units, but it also states that you only have 144 parking spaces. That's really critical. I think what we're doing is creating a real traffic problem in a concentrated area in this area, in these three areas that we're talking about. Number one, and I think that because of that, there should have been some effort or some intentions of providing us with a traffic study on how this is going to affect this immediate neighborhood. That's number one. Number two is that the Brady courts, which I was told that they got exempt from parking. I know for a fact that there were offices in there at one time when a while back where they were using the empty parking space that's presently being occupied by building number one. Now, what you're doing is taking all parking away from the Brady Court. Now, I understand that that's not your problem, but it causes additional problems because now we got more parking on the street and trying to find places to park. It's a real problem as far as I'm concerned. Number two, the big issue is the massing of this building. I don't think you can find anywhere in Armory Park that I'm aware of that you can find anything that's close to the massing of this project. This one individual project. I think it's inappropriate for a residential community that Armory Park is. I understand we've got some commercial projects in here, but by far the majority of the structures in this neighborhood are residential of single-story detached houses. So I think the scale of this project in this area and built for building number one is inappropriate. Number two, let's go to the other issue that I wanted to bring up on this Site 1 was the glass wall that's facing Russell Avenue for the parking or for the stairway enclosure. The glass wall is totally inappropriate for the Armory Park neighborhood. I have no idea why that even was placed in the project, and I can't believe that State Parks is willing to accept something like that. I think it would it's embarrassing that we have to even address that. As we go to site number 2.
Would you mind if I addressed some of your comments before we go on?
Yes, I think that would be fine. And Stan, if we can break it into comments on 1, then comments on 2, and then comments on 3, that would be helpful. Okay, thank you. Please.
So the first comment about parking, we had said that we were providing one-to-one, including the street parking. And you are correct that there's 140 parking
You did not state that there was going to be street parking included. You said one-to-one.
Yeah, so there's 145 parking spaces and then 23, and then an additional 23 parking spaces on the street. And those slant loaded picture on the top of 14th Street. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that you intended this to be a final review for the Armory Park Historic District. With that in mind, that information should have been written down and made the advisory board aware of what you were trying to do. There's a lot of areas here that are not covered that would have to be covered in a final review of this project. And so it's very disappointing that you are coming back now and telling me, well, that's all street parking. Well, if that's street parking, where are the people at Brady Court supposed to park now?
I can't comment on Brady Court. It's not
Well,
in my project.
It's an integral part
I
of this
hear what you're
neighborhood.
saying and I appreciate it. So your next comment about the massing of building 1.
You haven't answered the first one.
Well, I think that Lynn, thank you. I think that the first question was about the parking, correct?
Correct.
So we have the parking counts. The second was about the glass wall. So
second one was the massing.
The second was about massing.
Mhm.
And so the massing of building 1 matches the massing of the neighboring building to the south. So
But the building to the south is not a contributing structure within the district.
It has nothing to do with the neighborhood. That is not a contributing structure. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The wall that you're discussing on the stair off of Russell Avenue is not a wall at all. It's an open stair. There's no glass.
Okay, well, it was difficult to tell from the photograph. It looked like it was a glass wall. There's no, so that's a problem. It's almost impossible to tell what's being presented here because there's so little detail on the actual elevations, floor plans, or site plans. So I'm sorry, but it's very difficult. We have to make some assumptions when I look at that.
We'll be happy to add more detail in the next presentation.
But you were intending this to be the final presentation. So I would expected that had been part of this presentation so that we could make some intelligent decisions about what could or could not be done or what we would accept or what we wouldn't accept. So, okay, it's not a glass wall. Okay, we understand that now. But the final question is, how do you address the Brady Court issue with parking? You've taken over all of their parking spaces on the street. So where do they have to park now? You're a neighbor.
Again, Brady Court is not part of our project. I have no control over that property.
I understand that, but if you want to be a good neighbor, then I think you would respond to some issues that you're creating because of this project and how it's going to affect other buildings in the neighborhood. I think that's an important part of this discussion.
You ghosting.
The owners of Brady Court are also co-owners in this project, so they're aware.
Well, that doesn't solve the problem. I mean, where do they park? Just tell me where they're going to park.
I would have to have them on the call today. Yeah.
If I may interject, those parking spaces are taken every day, all day already. Regardless whether it's Brady Court people who are going to businesses in the area, whatever. So you may legally say that those parking spaces are available, but you know ethically and morally that they are not.
Okay, so I'd like to call on John Burr.
Yeah, I want to make a couple clarifications on this. One, I was one of the consultants for the downtown motor hotel, and that Section 106 process was very different. We actually met with all the stakeholders over 6 months and shared information and got some things. And so far, I don't think any of the stakeholders have been notified of any of this information from what I can gather. I also was the negotiator with the owners of the 375 site with their lawyer for the rezoning over a period of a year as well. So the question of the garage on Russell Avenue, Jen's information is actually incorrect. The original 1976 Armory Park listing excluded lots 1, 3, 2, and 7 or something like that. This garage, so the garage was an accessory structure to a large mansion on Stone Avenue that was demolished in 1948. But the ownership of that lot and Brady Court was the same. So the garage there was the parking for Brady Court for the better part of 70 years. It was and remains the last 1890s adobe structure of that configuration extant in Armory Park. It was added as a contributing structure to a demolished building on the 1994 survey and listing, and that is the error. SHPO has now taken that building off of its ranks, but SHPO is not the keeper of those ranks. It is still listed on the National Register, and it is still listed on the City Register as a contributing structure. It will have to go through a legal process to be removed from both of those other things. It's a complex problem. The problem with building one that I see is it has to be compatible with UDC section 5.8.9. And that means building form, details, setbacks, height, proportion, projections and recessions, surface texture and details, landscaping and colors. Those things have to be compatible with the district. There's nothing on this current iteration that actually is compatible with the district. That's the problem.
So, Stan, you have your hand up again.
Can I answer? Let me just answer one quick thing for John regarding the stakeholder outreach. So we've reached out to 15 different stakeholders and we've also posted information about the project on the buildings themselves. I will say that as far as the outreach goes, the only stakeholder response we got back was from the Tucson Historic Preservation Foundation. And then other than reaching out to the neighborhood themselves and having you all come to the site meetings and getting some input from you then. So we haven't got responses back. So I mean, it's unfortunate that we haven't gotten that. So we haven't been able to get that public input that we would have liked to have gotten. So I just want to make sure that that's clear that there has been an attempt to do that.
Okay.
The most recent iteration of this project. So we've put the continuing consultation on hold while we were trying to come up with some new design plans so that we could preserve 410 South 6th. And so my response to Damien was to let him know that we're reconfiguring project plans. And once we have a sense of what those are, we have the opportunity to review it with you all as we're doing tonight, and as well as with SHPO, that we will reinstate that stakeholder consultation process. So that's where we are in this process. As you can see, we have work to do, and that's part of what we're doing for section 106 is what we're doing tonight.
Okay, well, I am not on ABSAB currently, but I am on APNA, the Neighborhood Association Board. So at this meeting right now, it was under our impression that the entire process died when SHPO did determine that 410, as it exists, is indeed a contributing structure. So now that you are reinstituting the Section 106 process, I request now tonight at this meeting that the Neighborhood Association also be a consulting member, and that
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And can
yeah,
discuss.
we're basically we're reinitiating consultation with SHPO. We just sent them some updated information just to take a look to let them know that based on the input that we get from our meeting tonight with you all and PRS, that then we would send them an updated letter based on the input that we were getting from you all tonight. But yeah, we're absolutely reinitiating consultation, but we have to start all over again because we changed the project plans.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stan?
Yep.
Stan, then Matt.
All right, we go to site 2.
Oh, no, we're still talking about site 1. Matt, did you want to talk about site 1?
I want to talk just general points. Should you do that now for site 1 or at the end?
Do you have specific points about site 1 or just questions? Because then I think we'll take a motion that, because this is not coming in for review, it's a courtesy review, but it would still be helpful to have the input from our board in a way that is concise and meaningful. So I'm going to ask that there be a motion to collect our comments. But if you're ready to move to site 2, let's go ahead and do so. Or Matt, unless you had, were you looking for overarching or, yeah?
It's overarching, but it still applies to site 1. So my questions
Okay, please
are
do. Please
on
continue.
setbacks. I'd assume we review something similar to a DP package and see all the calculations and setbacks and zoning and height limitations and how all that relates.
So, Matt, if I'm not mistaken, you're asking about the process, what we traditionally receive, information about heights, and then also the development zone and comparison?
No, I'm asking how these buildings fit on the lot, if they are compatible. We're being shown a picture and assuming that they're compatible, but there's no calculations, there's no numbers, there's nothing we've been shown to show, hey, this 5-story building actually fits on this lot within the zoning. Nothing was said about if this is being for the infill incentive district or what the setbacks are going to be if they're asking for a reduction on setbacks. So I don't know how to review this based on not having that information if these buildings actually work or fit how they're shown.
Desiree, do you have, so fortunately, this is not a full review package because that information would be crucial. So we'll collect the information that we would need for that.
Yes, I can add a little bit. So when the projects come back to you for as a full review, we require that the applicant submit what's called a design package for historic reviews. So it's not a full development package, but it does require a site plan, elevations, other materials and details that are relevant to the project. So we would see a site plan with setbacks. We'd see elevations with heights and dimensions. So you will see that.
I think back to Stan's point, though, this was supposed to be a full review, so we should be seeing that.
This is was not intended to be a full review. But yeah, courtesy reviews do have different, I mean, for courtesy reviews, they come to the boards and PRS at different points. Sometimes it's very conceptual and sometimes it is more developed.
I must be missing something then.
I think the confusion was that this started as a full review and then it was a
Correct.
modified agenda and it became a courtesy review. Is that the case?
Yes, it was just inaccurately advertised,
Okay.
but it was not intended to be the final, an actual HPC review.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So then let's move to site 2. Stan.
Okay, I think before I go on to site 2, I'd like to, I meant to say before I started on site 1 is that the 2 letters that were presented to the city prior to this review by John Burr and by
Clink.
Damian Chinko, I would like them to be added to this presentation so that it be submitted to the city with their comments, because I think both letters are very clear about what is lacking in this presentation and what needs to be done in order for us to give any type of final review of the project. So as a statement, could we make those 2 letters a part of this submittal?
The letters were provided to the applicants, as well as to the boards. Um, I'm not sure, are you referring to like including them as your comments, or you want to
I
reference
want to make it,
them?
I want to make it part of the record.
Okay. Yeah, they are part of the record because they're public
Okay.
comments for
All right.
the
Okay, very
project.
good. Okay. Okay, let's go to site 2 then. The existing building at 410 South 6th Avenue. If we're going to take this building back to its original construction, its original form, its original design, I would like to have or be presented with some type of record, whether it be original drawings or photographs, to tell me that that original rectangle that's indicated as being preserved at this time was in fact the only part of the original construction. Because I don't believe that it was. I think that there was a section on the west side of the building that was part of the original structure, and there was another addition that was added on to that west section at a later date. And the reason I say that is because of my personal observation of the site, as well as the drawings that were presented in this proposal that showed that the windows used in that portion of the building, that single layer, a single story on the west side, maintained the same window types that are existing on the original structure itself. So I think that that tells me that that probably was part of the original structure. It may not have been, but I think if we're going to take it back to what we say is the original design and form of the building, we need to have more proof of what's there, what was there to begin with, not simply a statement saying that this is what it was. I'd like proof of that, number one. Number two, I think when we remove the additions that were later additions to the structure and simply add parking to the rest of the site, we have essentially destroyed the setting of that building. It no longer has its original setting in terms of the landscaping and the sidewalk and the passages that were originally there. I think to put the original building within a sea of asphalt is a mistake, and it's insensitive to the historic fabric of the neighborhood.
I can briefly address that, just in your concern for the removal of the setting. Yes, we recognize that. Shivos had the opportunity to look at some of the same materials as you, and they have concluded that with the removal of the additions and the inclusion of putting the parking in to replace the front and the back, which is basically was kind of, a lot with parking in a garage, that the building would retain its contributing status with this plan as proposed, with the addition of the parking. The other thing too, is just to remember is that the contributing status is very different than individually listed status. So if this was an individually listed property, the removal of the front yard and the sidewalk, for example, would be a much more serious concern. Because this is a contributor, those kind of considerations aren't as big of a deal, quite frankly, because it's a contributor. So it doesn't, the building only derives its significance from its association with other properties within the district. So in and of itself, that setting isn't quite as critical as it would be if it was individually listed. So, but yeah, SHPO has had the opportunity to weigh in on that concern over your set of setting that you've just described and said that it would not delist this building by the removal of the setting. And so one thing to keep in mind is that for a building to have integrity, it has to meet most, if not all, aspects of integrity. There's 7 aspects of integrity. So if you meet most of those aspects of integrity, even with the loss of setting, you still have sufficient integrity to remain in the National Register.
That may be an opinion from state parks. It's certainly not my opinion, though.
Right, understood.
John Burr, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I want to make a clarification that keeps getting overlooked and poo-pooed by everybody. But technically, because the priest's house was part of the parcel with the Cursillo and listed in 1976, it is not in SHPO's purview to make the determination. That determination is solely with the keeper of the National Register. SHPO did not exist when it was listed, and the original listings in 1976 actually are subject to 36 CFR 60.15, which predate December 13th, 1980. So it doesn't really matter if SHPO says without proof to us that, oh, taking off the 1948 editions would make it still eligible. It's not their call. And I have a call in to Joy Beasley. So the thing about this thing is, in 1976, there was no 50-year rule on districts. 100 out of 551 buildings in the district did not meet the 50-year rule. That is still applicable to all the buildings on the original listing. The 1948 configuration is exactly how the building was listed initially in 1976. The building as it exists is also associated with Cesar Chavez, who spoke and used this facility. If you take it off, you erase that relationship. It's also the founding of the mariachi movement in Arizona, and you will take away all the historic associations. Again, this is the keeper of the National Register who has not been consulted. This is not SHPO's call.
Thank you, John, for your input there. Any other questions or comments on Site 2? Stan, you still have your hand up.
No, I forgot to take it off. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So let's move to Site 3. Input, questions, comments on Site 3.
I'll do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'd like to reiterate the information that's provided by the letters by John and Damien are critical to this, and I think it's the thing that should be used as the note to comment on what we see about this project. On site number 3, I think the massing is a problem. I just think that we're talking about finding massing that's compatible to this, or has some relationship to this site in the Armory Park area. And if you're going to use the massing that's on Stone Avenue, I think it's a mistake. I think that this site is overdeveloped in terms of square footage used, and there's very little open space. That's my main comment on that. I think that the comments made by the neighborhood, people living in the neighborhood, are also very relevant here and should be taken into consideration. That's all I have.
Other comments on site 3? Yes, Matt.
Again, I think these are going to be overarching comments, but they all kind of relate. So on the massing, again, I think when you look at the what would be in the development package, so the street borders, uh, parking requirements, trees in the parking lot, I think all those once in play are going to start eating in the massing. Maybe scale these back. Once you start adding in trees in the parking lot, that might affect your parking count. So you may have less spaces than you anticipate. So you may need to reduce the number of units. There's all these factors that I think aren't being taken into account that will affect the overall design, the massing, the layout. I speak from experience. These always kind of reared up at the end. Being a landscape architect, they were what the architect, the engineer didn't see until it got too far. And they were trying to cram in trees and landscape borders and water harvesting components, and they're going into the forgotten spaces. But if you can bring that into play now, it might help with the building masses and the push and pull and the elevations, and help with some of these other concerns and comments from the other board members in the community.
Thank you. Stan, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, there was one thing I forgot. On the building elevations, it shows a vertical element that's, I don't know, every 20, 30 feet that goes from ground floor to the top, which has a glazed brick in it. And for the life of me, I have no idea where this comes from or what in the neighborhood could have possibly influenced that type of design. It seems to be a very inappropriate design for this building.
Thank you. So, if there are no other comments, would you please pull up the sheet that shows the 14th Street elevation and the 6th Avenue elevations? Oh, Helen, of the building 2.
Yeah, I would just like to sort of try to get something sorted out here. If this is, in fact, a review where we're looking at general concepts, there were a lot of bits and pieces of specific details. And I'm wondering if this is an appropriate time to try to focus on those, or should those be held for a future discussion? I mean, there are so many of them, whether you're talking about breeze block or whatever. I'm just wondering if this, perhaps a subsequent review would be more appropriate for that.
I think it may, although I would like to speak, if no one else is going to speak, about the 14th Street and 6th Avenue. The form of the building being taller than the structures on the site, being a third story, the form of the breezeways, I think it's exterior, is it exterior access that accesses the apartments along the outside there? Is that what we're looking at, or those balconies?
They're external corridors, exterior corridors.
So it essentially has the effect of a motel, a 3-story motel, and it has some Spanish colonial-ish materials and features, but the form itself is inconsistent with anything in the development zone that I can tell. And so I just wanted to say that the massing, the size, the scale, the form itself is something that I think is problematic and really needs to be reviewed. And then I would say also the stuff on site 1 is something that we would have a difficult time saying is compatible within the historic district as well. So those are my
I appreciate your comments, and we'll take that into consideration.
Thank you. So do we have a motion? Something that helps to put this together. John, you have your hand
Yeah, I
up.
just have a quick comment. Breeze block is specifically prohibited in Armory Park by code and design guidelines. It was only used post 1945. There are
We
no examples
we
of breeze
we
block.
acknowledge that this mid-century was accidentally put in this presentation, so
Okay,
that wouldn't be in this project.
great. Thank you.
Matt, you have another comment.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment that this project, with its flaws, is no representative of the Benedictine monastery project Country Club. So it shares some similarities. So I think some lessons learned can be pulled from that project moving forward with this one. But then to circle back and touch on Stan's point of traffic count, I think that's a very um, reasonable thing to look at. With the monastery, you have Speedway, you have Country Club, you have six, all 2-lane streets. You're dropping this one in a sea of 1-lane, different settings. So I think as you're working through this project, compare that project and see that process wasn't easy. See what they did, see what lessons can be learned from that.
Thank you. So,
Mr. Chair, I was going to remind the board that this is a courtesy review. We do not need a motion.
okay. So, um, there will be a recording of this, of course. And so, if there's not a motion, hopefully the input that you have heard at this meeting is helpful, and we look forward to seeing some of these concerns addressed. John, you have your hand up. But we don't hear you.
He's muted.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. TDOT has determined that a sidewalk has to be added on South Arizona Avenue from 14th Street back to 418 South Arizona parcel. So that sort of thing, those sort of details in landscape buffers and so on and so forth need to be shown in any presentation. Also, there has been a longstanding agreement with all the previous designers for Site 1. Armory Park worked very diligently with TDOT when they did the Scott Avenue Improvement Project. There are 2 historic lights that are retained, and there are sites in the sidewalk in the front of that building that have been promised multiple times by the development group to be installed in those sidewalks, and those need to be added to any development package.
Thank you for your attention to detail and long memory. Helen.
Yes, I would just sort of as a summary here, there are 2 major issues here. The first of all, this is a very complicated site, and it is very difficult to evaluate it as one unit. So I think going forward, it's going to be really important that, for example, the development zones for the individual sections are considered independently rather than looking at this as one large development zone, which it isn't. And I think the overall recommendations that people have made should be taken into account as sort of umbrella recommendations. But at the same time, I think if we look at this again, it'd be very helpful if we could look at these units as independent or at least distinctive units of an entire project. And I think that was one of the problems with the original information that we got, was it was very homogenized. And I don't think this is a project where you can rely on that kind of homogenization.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, and we look forward to reviewing this as a full review or potential of following a review of whatever sort in the future. Thank you.
Great, thanks for your time.
I have a question, but I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand
Sorry, Lynn.
because I'm technically inept. I know that there is a time crunch for the developers regarding HUD funding. And I would like to make sure that the community has the opportunity to weigh in and get all these questions answered and all the details correct before we get railroaded into that. Not that I'm making any judgment call here, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the formal process, and so there's no railroading that's going to happen. This has to go through all the correct channels and local review, so you will be made well aware of it.
And how does that affect your timeline?
I mean, we're working on, obviously we have a meeting with the city to talk about how we're going to do this by individual parcel. Because originally when we started this, we were starting it by individual parcel, but we were asked, not by the city, but by the folks that we were talking to, if we could do it as a single large project, because people were confused by the individual components of it, and they wanted to see it as the larger, at the PRS is who requested us to do it as a larger individual project. So I think there's lots of layers of confusion for all of us combined. So it's totally understandable.
Okay, and are you trying to get this all signed, sealed, and delivered by your mid-December date?
We're going to ask for an extension. I don't think there's really an opportunity to not do that. The problem being, though, is that we don't know if we'll be able to get that extension or not, because we've had to ask for extensions before on this project, because we have been trying to go through review and get stakeholder input, which again, up until recently has not been particularly responsive. So like I said, I mean, we've been trying to garner input since at least April. So, we keep,
and just so you know, I'm a resident of the neighborhood, and my husband's a Aetna board member. And as far as I know, there's not been any outreach into the neighborhood.
Yeah, understood. I mean, the letters go to a single individual, so it depends on where those get allocated. Yes.
And posting it on a building is not really that worthwhile if I'm not walking down that street.
Understood, but we are legally obligated by HUD to post notifications on the physical property.
Understand that, but I would assume that there would be more than what is legally required. I know that we do have a resident right next door, Lori Van Buggen. I can't say your last name, Lori. I'm sorry. Who received no information whatsoever. And so that speaks to the lack of concern that this project has within the neighborhood itself. That's it.
Thank you, Lynn. So, and thank you for coming this evening and making a presentation, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. So therefore, we'll go to item 5, minor reviews.
Stephen?
Yes.
We need to call Maurice first.
Oh, yes. I do not have Maurice's telephone number.
No, I don't either.
Okay.
I'll call him.
Thank you. So we'll be joining again as soon as Maurice is able to rejoin the meeting. Thank you, John.
They're calling Maurice.
And Stan, thank you for the reminder.
He should be joining momentarily.
Thank you. Hello, Maurice. Can you hear us?
He's on mute.
Hey, Maurice, can you hear us?
Yeah, the 5 on 5, loud and clear.
Thank you. So we'll move to item 5, minor reviews.
I've got a couple that are not complete yet. There was a minor review for 209 East 16th Street. It dealt with mechanical modifications and replacement of all the windows in the building. During the review, I didn't have any problems with mechanical, but they had modified the window character from the original windows that were in there. They're replacing them with sash windows like the original windows were, with the mullion dividers per the original design, but they did not keep the mullion dividers per 5 of the windows. So I approved it with a condition that they would change the 5 windows to meet the original design intent. And there was one window that was a double hung that was listed as a casement window, and I said that has to remain as a double hung. So other than that, I haven't heard anything back. I did ask Michael to send me a copy of what they modified, but I haven't seen that yet. So I don't know, Michael, have you gotten anything back from them on that?
Yeah, they submitted something recently. I'm going to forward that to you.
Okay.
So is
And
that
then-
St. Andrews?
And then there was some fencing, some CMU fencing and some wrought iron fencing at 460 South Fifth Avenue. That process was underway when I got the notification. I went over and talked to the owners, and the 6-foot CMU wall that they were building was going to be approved, so we accepted that, but they had to resubmit on some wrought iron fencing. They did resubmit, or they did show me an option, which I said that I would approve based on the fact that there were I found 2 similar situations like that in the neighborhood. So I told them to please resubmit on that and send it to Michael and get it back to me so I could review it one final time. But I have yet to receive anything on that. Have you, Michael?
On that one, they just sent me an email today and said they submitted. I checked and nothing was submitted. So I'm still waiting for that to send it to you.
Okay. Has he been in contact with you?
Yes.
Okay, because I asked him to, because he was worried about the permit process, and you had mentioned if you didn't get back to him at a certain time, you were gonna cancel the permit.
No, I said I would put a hold on it, but I requested for a resubmit because he was supposed to resubmit those drawings. So I'm still waiting for them.
Okay.
I just got an
Well,
email from the
yeah,
from Lisa.
Okay, it was something that I would approve, so I'm hoping that he got around to it fairly quickly, because that's been about a week and a half now.
It's about 3 weeks now.
It's been 3 weeks already?
Yeah.
Wow.
We went on site. Yeah. So
All right, well,
as soon as I get it, I will send it to you.
okay, that's all I had for minor reviews.
That's what I have too.
Okay, you've got something else coming up?
Not right now,
Okay, very
but
good,
I will contact you if anything.
very good.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to item 6, which is called to the board. I'm not even sure what call to the board means, John. You can help me with this. John Burr. John, we don't hear you.
I have a small
There we
announcement.
go. Sorry about that. I'm not on the board, but I will report it so that staff knows. There was a 4-minute meeting beginning at 6:39 on a week ago on Tuesday with the neighborhood association. There were, I don't know, maybe 50 people there.
John, it was actually Wednesday evening.
Wednesday, thank you, the 12th. And 3 candidates were nominated. So Jan Mulder, who was actually on this meeting, Martha McClements, a former chair, and I got renominated. So I will get those minutes to both of you in a timely fashion for the city clerk.
Thank you. It's appreciated.
Yeah.
And welcome back to the board.
Well, next year we all still have to go to the vetting. Hopefully it's not going to be like June next year.
We look forward to the appointment of these people. Helen, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I would like to mention that both John Burr and Steve Grady were awarded distinctive, I don't know what the name of the award is, for their incredible long-term service to historic preservation and to Armory Park. And I would like to see, and Desiree, you might be able to help with this, how we could further publicize this, because these are 2 people who have done such amazing work for Tucson, and I'm sure that very few people know about it. So
I'd like
Absolutely.
to Martha McClements in this as well. She was also, it's the J. Blackford Award. It's a neighborhood award that had been given out in the 90s for one of the beloved preservationists of our neighborhood. And so it was
That's
an honor.
wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, Helen, if you want to send me more information, I can send it to our PIO and they can probably, like, I don't know if it's on social media or, anything like that, can share it out.
perfect. I think it's really important to, when people have given so much to the community, and it's,
Yes, absolutely.
Dan.
You need a copper letter, you and John.
And Martha.
And Martha.
John, who was the 4th person that I was standing next to?
God. Ken, actually a lot of these members will know it. Ken Taylor, who
yes, Ken.
was both involved. He was the IT tech person that made live meetings with interactive and early versions of hybrids function for this board for a dozen years as well. So basically, yeah, there's a lot of cross-pollination there. And he did that. He also did the sidewalk projects, 2 rounds of it in the neighborhood association, plus kind of moving it to the digital age.
Okay, John Burr, if you will write all of this up for me, as I previously asked you to do.
Helen, for some reason, I seem to have been kind of busy this week.
What your problems are, John, but we did talk about this.
I'll get something to you, and I'm also looking forward to the next meeting. I think it's, what is it, December 5th, for trying to figure out ways to improve the process.
Yes, thank you.
So,
Stan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, one final comment, and that is to John for the letter that he sent to the city prior to this meeting. That letter was incredibly valuable, and I think told the story far better than probably any of the vocal comments that were made tonight. I think that he's got a clear understanding of what is required by law, and I think that's probably is going to carry a lot more weight than some of the comments that we made this evening. So thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
sure. The
Good,
thing that's
Steve.
kind of,
Oh, sorry. I heard a voice. Go ahead, Maurice.
Okay, I just wanted to let you folks know that I'm going to bring the historic preservation spirit again in Tucson Parks and Recreation. I am being reappointed for another term as the commissioner for Ward 6, starting December 1st. Actually December 2nd.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for your work with this. Lynn, you were speaking. No.
I think that was me. I was just trying to clarify. This whole process for All Saints started 10 years ago with a city meeting to figure out what would happen to the Curcio. And that led to an RFP process and the purchases of the properties. And I've been at every single meeting for these projects over that decade. So I'm also the vice chair, and I'm into my third term as the vice chair of the Infill Incentive District Design Review Committee, which will also be reviewing Site 1. At some future date, and helped rewrite the infill incentive district so that it cannot be used if contributing historic buildings are demolished, which was a big change to what Tucson has done for historic preservation in the last 2 or 3 decades. So familiarity does help inform a very, very complex process.
Thank you. So
You know, I also wanted to add my congratulations for John, okay, to be able to carry a voice for all those of us that don't have a voice and make it clear so that city government understand what our needs are. John is doing a terrific job, and again, I want to thank him for it.
Thank you. Matt, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to mention quickly to Michael and Desiree that I'm still not receiving communication.
Yeah, I reached out. Desiree, I think Michael's notice of the meeting, so he knew about the links, may have gotten there, but I had to forward your things, your address. He was not included with the 2 comments, so I forwarded it to him today. But that really does need to be worked out.
Okay, so is it that the email is not on the Outlook invite, or it's the wrong email?
The wrong email. Matt, would you
Okay,
be willing to
we
put
can
your
fix that right now. Let's see. I'll open it up.
Okay. So if you can put your email in the chat, that would be helpful. And then we'll move to item 7 because we're a little over 2 hours, but I'm hoping to stop between 2.25 hours. Staff updates and future agenda items information only. A Plan Tucson approved by voters.
We just wanted to mention and to thank that the Plan Tucson was passed, and we wanted to thank everybody who participated in that process. I know that Helen was holding many meetings. Many of you might have also participated in it. So we at Planning and Development Services, we are very excited that we have another mandate to redesign Tucson. but that could not have been done without the participation of all who were engaged in this process. And even those who were not engaged, there is still an opportunity for you to still give us feedback, because I think we are still doing a little bit of public outreach as we are going to move into the execution implementation stage. So that's what I had on the plan too, son. Desiree, if you have something to add, please go for it.
No, I think you summarized it well. Thank you, everyone, if you participated.
I think
in
we ought to give a
making
round of
it.
congratulations to Helen. She worked, I think it was JG Lamb and a bunch of other people, but she reintroduced historic into Plan Tucson.
Yes, thank you, Helen.
Thank you, John.
Congratulations. Thank you, Desiree. Good job.
I didn't really do anything. It was already done by the time I started. So, but yes, I'll pass the sentiments on to my coworkers. So,
Hold it.
So item B is design guidelines to continue in a committee.
Well, we just put that there too because the other advisory board, West University, Barrio, Fodlo, they are way advanced with their relation to their guidelines. Armory Park seems to have just gone dead. And so we were wondering whether there's any idea within the board as to whether we can revamp that, maybe pick it up from where we left it and then continue so we can be on the same line with the other advisory boards. That was the only thing that we put it up there to get your feel for the next step potentially could be maybe next year or something.
Michael, that's an excellent idea. And I know that Helen and I worked with, as members of the Historic Landscape Subcommittee, worked with Barrio Historico and helped them. We recommended a structure for their historic landscape and streetscape guidelines. So that's something that could be very helpful as a format for that aspect of the design guidelines. Okay, item C is 726 South Bean Avenue, new duplex.
Yeah, this one had come to you as a courtesy review. If you recall, not long ago, they have now resubmitted and they want to present to you as a full review. We're about, I believe we are going to have that for the December review. If you all can recall, the 726 South Beam was this project, a vacant lot that had initially been reviewed and approved by the that property owner did not follow up on that, and so we have a new person now who's proposing to, develop that lot again. And there was a minor review before this board, but they got recommendations and feedback from you, and based on that, they have revised their plans, and they are ready to come back to you as a full review. So you should be having them in the December meeting.
Do we need to look at December schedules to make sure that it doesn't conflict with schedules?
So it would traditionally be, it's the second Tuesday.
Third Tuesday.
The third Tuesday.
Okay, so let's take a look at the third Tuesday in December. That would be the 16th. Yeah, I already have it on my calendar. So it doesn't, fortunately, it's further away from the holidays. Will we have a quorum? Generally, I can make it. Anybody unable to attend?
I'll make it.
Okay.
I will be there.
Okay, and Helen, I think I saw a nod from you, so it looks like we'll have.
I think I can be there.
Then thank you. So excellent. Then we will look
What
forward.
about Matt? Matt, will you be there?
Matt nodded yes.
Okay. So we have a full house. So
Michael and
Should we
Desiree,
go-
can I
Yes.
make a request that the chat be captured and added to the transcription so that it's part of the record? Because a lot of things popped up there that were discussed in the meeting.
Yes, the chat is generated like as its own PDF. I can ask about that. Yeah, if we can attach it or how that works. But it is part of the record, technically speaking.
Can we take
It's
my
just not
email off?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just not generally accessible. So, and
Mhm.
hasn't always been captured and probably should be for this meeting.
Can we take my email off? So I don't get random emails.
Can you delete it? Here, delete.
Is there an Ian Smith in your email?
No.
There is not.
Okay. No I. All right.
Well, then I would like to, I don't think we need to move to adjourn. I think we can just adjourn at 8:46 p.m. So 2 hours and 1 minute. 2 hours and 16 minutes. So
There's a neighborhood holiday party on the 13th of December at St. Andrew's Parish Hall that you can all be invited to. I think it starts at 5:30. It'll be on the listserv, but I'll try to send that around.
thank
And
you, John.
Nicole's cooking the turkeys, so turkeys will be good.
Thank you.
Lynn, you're actually on that committee.
The meeting is adjourned. So
I know. I found
uh,
out that I've been volunteered for everything.